Good evening. I'm Guinevere Catchings-Hess, President of the Black Women's Agenda. Welcome to today's town hall on mental wellness and self-care. We could not do this tonight without the sponsorship of AARP. So we want to start by having our sponsor give you a few words. I'd like to introduce to you tonight Shani Hostin, Vice President of AARP. Shani?
Good evening and welcome everyone. On behalf of AARP, our CEO, Joanne Jenkins, Executive Vice President, and our Chief Diversity Officer, Edna Kane Williams, and our over 38 million members across the United States, I bring heartfelt greetings. I'm Shani Hostin, and I'm also blessed to serve as Vice President in our Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at AARP, leading our African American and Black strategy work, as well as our LGBTQ strategy work. And I am so delighted to be a part of this important discussion on Black women and mental wellness and self-care. And we know all too well the stereotype of a strong Black woman. She is unbreakable, unyielding, resilient, overcoming any obstacle, selfless, strong-willed, and she is by definition a superwoman. We all wear our cape. And perhaps there is a price for that superwoman role. In AARP's 2021 Mirror study, which looked at Black women's reflections on beauty, age, and the media, the pandemic stress has really manifested in many physical effects for us Black women, including weight gain, sleep disruption, skin, teeth, and hair challenges. In our study, we also revealed that since the pandemic began, that a majority, about 58% of Black women have increasingly focused inward on our inward piece. And similarly, 60% are also focused on health, are often their outward, more so than their outward appearance. And so we also see in the media, women prioritizing their health and mental wellness. And they remind us that Black women deserve and have the time to have the resources that we need for our self-care. And so tonight, AARP's sponsorship of Embracing Mental Wellness and Self-Care aligns with our commitment to the Black community and reflects on our core mission to empower people to choose how they live as we all age. And living as we age means taking care of not only our physical health, our spiritual, our social, and our mental health. And to learn more about our AARP tools and resources, please visit us at aarp.org/Black community. And also visit sistersletter.com, again, sisters with an S, sistersletter.com, for a free newsletter that's written by Black women for Black women. So we are grateful for the opportunity to share in this important work with the Black Women's Agenda. We're grateful for each of you that have taken time as a dedicated act of self-care this evening. And we hope that you're able to apply and share the knowledge that you're learning on this important conversation tonight with others in your community. Thank you. And now I'll turn the program back over to Madam President Guinevere. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shani, and thank you so much from AARP in sponsoring tonight's event. You know, tonight, we mourn the death and celebrate the life of Bell Hooks. She was a wonderful scholar and activist whose work examined the connections between race, gender, and class. And she often explored the varied perceptions of Black women and Black women writers and development of feminist identities. Bell Hook once wrote, "In an ideal world, we would learn in childhood to love ourselves. We would grow being secure in our own worth and value, spreading love wherever we went, letting our light shine. If we did not learn self-love in our youth, there's still hope. The light of love is always in us, no matter how cold the flame. It is always present, waiting for the spark to ignite, waiting for the heart to awaken and call us back to the first memory of being the life force inside a dark place, waiting to be born, waiting to see the light. We hope that bell hooks rest in power. So now we are so excited. The Board of Directors of Black Women's Agenda welcomed the most fabulous panel that one could put together on this issue of embracing mental wellness and self-care. Let's start with Dr. Rihanna Elise Anderson, who's also known as the woman with the cutest hat on in the flyer. She is an assistant professor in the Department of Health, Behavior and Health Education at University of Michigan School of Public Health. She earned her PhD in clinical and community psychology at the University of Virginia and completed a clinical and community psychology doctoral residency at Yale University School of Medicine. She also completed a Ford Foundation postdoctoral fellowship in applied psychology and was a Robert Wood Johnson Culture of Health leader at the University of Pennsylvania. On the whole, Dr. Anderson aims to facilitate healing in Black families with practical applications of her research and clinical services through public engagement, teaching, mentorship, and policy recommendations. You may have seen some of her work on CNN, the New York Times, Huffington Post, Psychology Today, and NBC Newsroom. Dr. Anderson is involved nationally as an appointed member of the American Psychology Association Children, Youth, and Families Committee, the Society for Research on Adolescence and Anti-Racism Task Force, and the Society for Research and Child Development. Finally, Dr. Anderson was born in, raised for, and returned to Detroit, or as we say in the South, Detroit, and is becoming increasingly addicted to cake pops. Welcome, Dr. Anderson. Next, our physician in the house, Dr. Janet Taylor, who is a community psychiatrist in Sarasota, Florida, working with individuals who are in criminal justice involved and have mental illnesses. Wow. She is also in private practice. The practice of community health is extremely rewarding for her. And being on the front lines with individuals and their families battling with emotional and economic impact of mental illness is where she feels that she can make the most difference. She attended the University of Louisville in Louisville, Kentucky for undergrad school at the medical school, an internship with the Miriam Hospital Brown University. Her psychiatric residency was at New York Medical College, Westchester Medical Center. She is an incredible person who a lot of you may have already seen on the Today Show this morning on NBC, Good Morning America. And she has talked on issues of motherhood, parenting, mental health. Dr. Taylor is a regular on CNN, MSNBC, and ABC's webcasts, and Moms Get Real. She had a column with the Family Circle magazine called Ask Dr. Janet. Dr. Janet, we welcome you to this evening's panel. Tia Brown is our next panelist, and she is a licensed therapist and life cycle expert who uses solutions-based therapy to help individuals practice practical life skills and treatment plans to enhance their quality of life. After spending more than a decade addressing issues ranging from relationships and mental health stress and budgeting for personal financial woes, Tia knows what helps clients to develop skills to make healthy choices and improve their overall quality of life mentally, financially, and exponentially. Tia has landed coverage also on CNN, MSNBC, VH1, Fox, The Bill Cummings Show, and she is a correspondent on the Dr. Oz Show. The other thing about Tia is that she has a smile that will make you feel better automatically. Welcome, Tia. And now, drum roll. Actress Jennifer Lewis, who is an activist, an author, and she has been in over 70 movies, 400 episodes of television shows, 4 Broadway shows, and has toured the concerts and toured and has concerts all over the world. She currently stars as Ruby Johnson on the Emmy-nominated ABC hit show Blackish. Jennifer's best-selling memoir, The Mother of a Black Hollywood, was named 2018's Book of the Year by the National Book Club Convention. And the audiobook version narrated by Jennifer reached #1 on Amazon. Jennifer is a social media sensation among her many talents. Jennifer delivered a legendary performance as Tina Turner's mother in What's Love Got to Do with It? And in The Preacher's Wife, the mother of Whitney Houston's character, Jennifer starred opposite Matt Damon, Clint Eastwood in Hereafter, and she's worked with Tyler Perry in Medea's Family Reunion. She has done many, many TV roles. Everyone knows who she is. Everyone loves Miss Jennifer Lewis. We welcome you. Thank you for joining us. And we have the hostess with the mostest, Miss Michelle Miller, who is the co-host of CBS Morning. Her work regularly appears on CBS Mornings, CBS Evening News, and she also files reports for 48 Hours and anchors Discovery's 48 Hours on ID and Hard Evidence.
And Gwen, I'm going to stop you right there because you need to say another thing about me.
No, I have to say one thing. I have to say one thing. I have to say that you have interviewed Denzel Washington and Kenny Kravitz. And that for me would make me have great mental wellness. So I want to say thank you so much for agreeing to be our moderator for this evening. We love you.
Oh, Madam President Gwen, thank you so much. And I'm so glad to be online, on stream, on however we say this with all of you, because this is such an important topic. And, I think that, I literally stepped off of one Zoom into another. That Zoom was with AARP, and it was about the Purpose Prize. And I find that purpose, I'm told, can drive mental health in a way that can be just abundantly beneficial. Is that the way to say it, doctors and therapists? Because, purpose, I think, I don't know. What do you think?
When I think about go ahead, sorry. When I think about purpose, I think about core beliefs, right? And so these are the ideas that center you around not only what you're doing, but how you want to be in the world. And that is absolutely anchoring as you go through tough times.
Yeah. Doc, sorry. So many of us have come out of like a real quake of a time. And I'm just curious, are there levels that we can start this conversation? Because, I think people need to understand, who are undiagnosed, where they fit in the, along the spectrum of their mental wellness. It's really important for people to understand sort of the basics. Can you, Dr. Janet, help us with that?
Well, sure. I mean, it's important to understand that almost half of all Americans have some diagnosable mental condition, almost half of us, right? So think about that, everybody on the call, which means that we are all going through something. And there's no question that with COVID-19 and the isolation, uncertainty, and also the racial, can't even call it reckoning, but the racial unrest that continues, and in particular racism. And if you talk about microaggressions, especially to women, we are all going through something. But the point is that, mental health, in my opinion, has never been talked about as much as it is now, which we need, but mental health is treatable. So if you have a condition, depression, bipolar, schizoaffective, and it's impacting how you live, work, love, understand that we have to lose the shame about stigma, get the help that you need. If you're uninsured or underinsured, there's help there, but there's treatment, there's psychotherapy, so that we can realize our purpose and push through our potential. And we can't let mental illness detract us from that. And the last thing I'll say is, so often we talk about mental health and we think mental illness, and what we're really focused on is mental wellness and how we can prevent someone developing a mental condition that debilitates them, when in fact, we all deal with the normal stresses of life, but resources are out there.
So many people who are struggling with their wellness, and I'll put it that way. We're hearing so much more from people. Has that number increased, or is simply the stigma lifted? And I know, Jennifer, you've been one who's spoken out publicly about your own struggles. First, from one of the experts, then to you, Jennifer. Why are people stepping out and speaking their truth?
Well, you have to. I mean, we have two choices: you live, you die. And there are a lot of people that are the walking dead. We have to live while we live. You have to look in the mirror. You have to say yes to yourself. You have to say yes to this beautiful planet. Listen, you've got the dysfunctions in childhood. This is where a lot of it comes from. We've got to start protecting our children. That's number one. We have to protect our children from being abused, molested, raped, beaten. That's the world of it first, because that's where most of it comes from. When you're not loved, crumbs look good. When you don't know what love is, you see. So my whole thing with people who are suffering from bipolar disorder is you must have patience with yourself. It's patience. patience for your level of medication. You know, when I first started, I got dry mouth and my sexual urge went away. Well, that wasn't gonna last. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. I'm being silly, y'all. You know, I got to break it with some humor. But yeah, there are going to be some side effects sometimes from the medication. I'm not pushing medication. I'm saying if you need it, then take it.
Jennifer,
and it's not just medication. You've got to combine the treatment. It has to be therapy and medication if you need it. You can't, a pill is not going to cure anything. It's just not, darling. So
Jennifer, I hate to break in, but I've had so many friends who have, started the process. They feel better.
It's so hard.
And then they leave the process saying, I'm fixed, I'm cured.
I cannot tell you how many people I know in show business who stopped taking their medications and killed themselves. I mean, do I need to call names? No. They hang themselves. The rage is out of control. I know that rage. I know what mental illness looks like. You see, I was backstage with Robin Williams once. And I saw him and he wouldn't stop. He didn't stop. And I was like, oh my God, is that what I look like? And listen, you got that cousin up on top of the table at the family reunion pulling down his pants. Y'all, we got to pay attention to the people we love who are out of control. You know that. You know if you're out of control. Look in the mirror. If you have to ask, it is a yes. We run from these things. You cannot run. It is a chemical imbalance in the brain. There's nothing to be ashamed of. You have a right. I never thought I'd run around quoting the Constitution, but you have a right to pursue happiness. I lived in dark rooms in my 20s and 30s. There's a black cloud on my shoulder for years. The mania was exhausting, that high. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the mania is high. And the depression is dark. It's a horrible, horrible disorder. But there is treatment. Come with me, people. Look at me. I mean, really. Come on. First of all, listen, first of all, I'm gorgeous. God, people, do you see how cute I am? I mean, look at how cute I am. No, on a serious note, listen, you have to take care of yourself. Nobody's coming to save you.
I love that. I think a lot of times.
Yes.
When we think about self-care, we think about, vacations, we think about, things of indulgence, even they talk about wine and, things like that. But self-care truly is about finding the things that you need to maintain a healthy lifestyle overall.
And how do you find that? First of all, you have to say yes. Yes, there's something wrong. And I want to be well. My therapist saw how much I wanted to be well. Y'all hear me?
Yes. And there's so many people out there, I recognizing that there is a problem, I think, or the need for help. And so much of it, as you actually described, as Dr. Janet described as well, stems from not just the abuse in a childhood, but the constant ongoing reckoning.
Pressures of
racism.
life.
Well, we're dealing with racism. And I wanted to offer Dr. Rihanna a chance to jump in on this. This racial reckoning gave us this recognition that racism really is a part of a greater problem that we have to deal with constantly. So how do we reconcile that, Dr. Rihanna? how do Black women reconcile the race with the wellness?
So you just want me to like figure out all the things in one question. That's cool. I can do that, Michelle. Let's get into it.
I know you can. I wouldn't ask unless I knew you had it in you.
That's the magic. That's the magic.
Right. Let's get into it. Okay. So I do want to jump back to what you were asking about, Michelle, earlier with this idea of, is there more? So I think that I can combine these two in this way. When we kicked off the pandemic last year, we saw that Black folks weren't doing very well, and no one was. Everyone was exponentially higher in depression, anxiety, stress than they were a year ago, right? So March 2020, everybody is at this exponential rate. But when George Floyd was murdered by Derek Chauvin in May, this chart started to differentiate. You saw Black people's stress, anxiety, depression go up even higher. That means in addition to losing their neighbors, themselves, lamenting, having grief, all of these things that they were already experiencing at higher rates. There were already disparities, right? So we already saw those disparities. It was already impacting Black people, this pandemic, differently than other people. But then they started seeing, in the midst of this, in the midst of life lost, we can still be killed in the same structural and systemic ways that we were prior to this pandemic. And to add insult to injury, George Floyd recovered from COVID. So he beat this social, virus that has this physical virus to succumb to a social virus, right? One that people are inflicting on them through disproportionate force, right? So when I'm looking at these numbers and I'm looking at this disproportionate rate of Black people feeling stressed, depressed, and anxious in the midst of a global pandemic and racism, we're able to say that racism is a large part of why Black people are experiencing the stress, anxiety, and depression. It's not just what they're experiencing the rest of their lives, because so much of that is built on racism, where we live, what we eat, what schools we go to, how we are able to access care, the very ideas that these women have been talking about, that I'm worth going to therapy, that it's okay to go to therapy, that I'm not going to be consequenced if I say something is wrong, right? That's a huge issue, that we haven't been able to go to therapy or to say that something is wrong because we're going to get fired. We're going to get stripped of these things that we have been doing to sustain. So
I have noticed when I toured the country with the Mother Black Hollywood, churches are starting to do counseling. I got a lot of women telling me that out there in the world, that churches are starting to do some counseling, bringing in some psychiatrists. I was very happy to hear that.
Absolutely. And so I think that's a great way to turn it around, that we have been dealing with such stress, anxiety, depression, frustration for so long. So the difference, what's happening this year, is that we're seeing so many places like churches, like community centers say there's a problem. We've now acknowledged it.
To tell you something that's going on, I talked to a professor the other day that teaches at Mott University in Flint, what the dirty water has done to the psyche of some of the children there. I mean, you talk about these social issues. I mean, it's in the water.
Yeah. It is in the water.
Basically, it's in the water, But I'm telling you, I'm going to tell you something, somebody. This sound, I don't know how it's going to sound, and I don't know that I care, because it's honest. Somebody asked me a long time ago about, being Black in Hollywood and that sort of thing, and the racism that's here. I'm a different. I walk in a different walk. I walk in a very spiritual walk. And I told her, no, I don't experience a lot of racism because I'm not looking for it. We have to stay in the moment of life and live. Too many people wake up with this rage, and you have a right to it, but you don't get to destroy your life with it. You don't get to be consumed by it and let it run your life. The rage is madness. I've got friends who are, she said the name of it. Can't think of the name of the disorder. Come on, y'all, help me. The last one is bipolar. It's
Schizophrenia, depressed. But can I just add?
It doesn't matter the name of it. And forgive me for
No.
stuttering, but I'm just saying we have to have more patience. We have to have more patience. Patience for our level of medication. You have to want to be well. You got to take that family member by the hand and say, "Come here, pumpkin. Come here, baby."
Michelle,
yeah,
can we talk? Yeah, go ahead, Janet, but I wanted to point out
about Black women and wellness. I think it's really critical that we understand, even though we're, talking about trauma and certainly mental health, that we understand that your brain is in your body, and the impact of chronic stress and trauma from racism and being gendered, being consequence, means that physically it impacts every organ in your body. So it's not an accident that Black women, we have the highest rates of diabetes, hypertension, cancers in some cases, and the role that stress plays in triggering every medical condition that we have. So it's really critical that we continue to talk about wellness and prevention and how to take care of yourself so that we can live to take care of our children.
Right.
And just to add on what Dr. Janet is saying, a lot of times we think of trauma as being, seeing someone killed, whether it's vicarious or direct, or seeing, having someone leave the household. But there are other things that are traumatic in our lives. So other things that cause stress, other things that cause triggers that we need to maintain in order to make sure our wellness happens.
Trauma is an inappropriate glance from somebody. Mm-hmm. Trauma is an inappropriate glance. Look at this Jeffrey Epstein thing. Look at Kendrick Johnson. I mean, it's endless. And I think what it's called for, and I'm sorry I'm talking so much, but it calls for patience. It calls for paying attention. That's the real key. We're not paying attention to one another.
So how do we pay attention, especially parents of children? How should they be on the lookout as Black moms?
This is the last thing I'm going to say, guys, because I want you to talk. You're the experts, but I want to say this. I think we need to purposefully start having meetings. Get out in the community. See what's going on. Who's in pain. Instead of, getting together playing spades. Get together and talk about what's going on. We have to communicate with each other. We have to hold one another. We have to rock each other.
And so those
family members. Go ahead, baby.
Yeah, so those conversations don't always even have to look like big meetups, right? So, Michelle, you talked about with your children, be in communication with your children, checking in to see how their day was. What were the things that happened? How did you feel about that? Checking in with yourself. How did I feel about how, Susie May or Keisha treated me at the office? Because we can be traumatized by peers. We can be traumatized by, people that we're in romantic relationships with. We're traumatized by so many different things. So if I had one word, I would say it's communication. We have to increase our awareness of things and how they impact us.
I need you to help me. Tia, I need you to help me because I am a communicator, and yet sometimes it's hard for me to talk to my teenagers. Mm-hmm. Are there some perfect questions that you could throw out for us as parents? I mean, Tia, Dr. Rihanna, Dr. Janet, I don't know what questions to ask sometimes that might elicit the appropriate bell that might ring off for me.
Yeah, I would love to jump in on this because you're talking about my work directly, right? So I've developed a program for Black families to talk to each other about racism, but we've been using the word expert a lot today. And everyone on this call right now, the folks watching, you are experts. Jennifer, the expert of her own experience. All of us are experts of our experience. So whether it's coming from us or y'all, I just want to start there that you have expertise, which means you know your child, Michelle. Everyone listening, you know your child, whether you know the question to ask, or you can use the media, you can use some TV. We actually use Blackish a lot in our program, the episode on Hope in particular, in which the family was around the TV watching this Obama inauguration and watching Anthony Anderson's character react to thinking Barack was going to get snuffed out, right? At inauguration. We use that and ask, how did that make you feel? It's that simple. You can use that question. How does that make you feel? What did you notice today? Those are things that can help. And the one other thing I'll say is that routine can be helpful. So I think Tia said it beautifully. It doesn't have to be a meeting. It doesn't have to be anything formal. And if you know that Monday is Mental Health Mondays in your house, and you all sit down and it's like, all right, it's Mental Health Mondays. What are we going to talk about at the table today? You got it, mental health. If they know that this is a part of what our family does, they can expect to talk about this in the house. That creates a routine. And they might come to you, Michelle, and say, let me tell you what happened today, Mom. You don't have to be the one always eliciting it. So I will say again, if it is you, feel free to use the question, how are you feeling? What did you notice? But use media, use the things happening in the world, and create a routine in your house for it.
I love that. And the other thing I would add is don't expect perfection. It's about the consistency, right? So you may do it 4 or 7 Mondays in a row and the kids are really dry, but that 8th Monday, something may happen and they know that that's a space to talk, right? So continuing to do it, or if you forget on the 5th and 6th Monday, or you're traveling on the 5th and 6th Monday, you have to still come back on the 7th. So that's the biggest thing. It's having the routine, being consistent, creating the space to know that we're on a team. And I want to hear what you have to say.
Can I sorry to interrupt, but again, as a mother of 4 daughters who are now adults, I think, part of our problem is part of what happens to us as Black women is that we are so used to taking care of other people that we don't put ourselves first, right? And there's this myth of multitasking that our brain can do so many things. Our brain functions the best when it focuses on one thing, and that focus should be on each and every one of you. And so when we're talking about how to, whether it's a Mental Health Monday or how to help our kids have better mental health, we have to model it for them, which means we have to talk about our feelings, whether it's perceived as negative or not so negative. We can talk about our hurts and pains. We can talk about what, our triumphs in a way that they see how because our kids are always watching how we deal with it, and then show them in a positive way about emotions and feelings. So, which means we also have to put down our cell phones and we just need to pay attention to ourselves. But it's okay to put yourself first. This is about self-care and it begins with you.
Yes. I love that showing that vulnerability and then the resilience, right? A lot of times we think that if, we fall down, the kids will think, or our family members or our friends or our coworkers will think less of us. But the reality is that we all fall down. We all have tough times. It is okay to not always, as they said earlier, wear that cape. You will be fine. And I think because we are so used to wearing the cape, we also often don't trust ourselves to fall. Like we will project that it's, other people can't handle it, but we think we can't handle it. But we handle it all the time. So
I know I said I wasn't gonna say nothing else. I know I said I lied. Everybody knew I lied. Everybody knew I was lying. I want to say this, guys. I'm just gonna tell you some things I do. First of all, you got to get up and you got to take your medication if you're on it. Mm-hmm. You can't miss that. You don't get to drop the ball, take the medication for 2 weeks, and then you say, I'm fine. I've done that. The relapse is ugly. Oh, God, you don't want to know. Take your meds. Where is it? I wish I had it right here. I've been journaling. I got up this morning and journaled. I drove up to a mountaintop and I journaled about everything that's going on. How do I feel? What do I want my day to be? You're in charge of your day. You're in charge of your night too. You're in charge of you. So you might as well start developing some good habits to feed yourself joy. That's the name of my second book. I just finished, y'all. Oh my God. Look at this room. I wish I could turn it around. You see all this?
Oh, wow.
That's my second book, and it's called Walking in My Joy. The book is about what happened to that woman that laid on the sofa for 17 years. What happened to her? What happened to that woman that said, I want to be happy and I want to be well, who wanted it? You got to want it. There can't be excuses. You can't start and stop. That's not what this is about. There's a price for stopping. Robin Williams stopped. Robin Williams got off his medication and hung himself. On top of the world.
So it sounds like you found your purpose, Jennifer.
Listen, y'all, I'll tell you right now, my life is now 25% show business, 75% activism. Resistance. Do you understand me? I've got nothing to do but give back to this next generation. That's why I wrote the second book.
Well, you're talking about being bipolar and taking your medication, and your struggle will help so many people. So thank you.
I hope
yes.
So. I want y'all to know. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to go to a question from the audience, because a woman says that I'm a survivor of mental illness, clinical imbalance, as Jennifer stated, from 31 years ago. She says she was under psychiatric care also and medication, and she was in her 40s. She's asking at 75, could it ever happen again? Because she says she's off her meds. And I guess the question is, could it happen again? And I throw that out to, any and all of you.
I mean, the fact that it sounds like she hasn't been on medication for almost 30 years and she's stable, which is a great thing. I mean, you can be depressed, you can have bipolar, have a manic episode, have a depressive episode, and some people will never have those episodes again. If it does happen, the key thing is, as Jennifer's been saying, know your signs and symptoms, know where you can get help and get back on your medication. But at 75, it's probably unlikely that she will have another episode. And that's the point.
Girl, have a glass of wine and shut up somewhere. Get out of here. Go have a glass of wine. You 75. You better lay back and enjoy yourself. But I will say this. If you find yourself, if you see the warning signals of having an episode or going into a deep depression, you go and get checked out again. Don't mess around with that, no matter what age. Don't mess with your medication. Don't mess with your treatment. You know how hi guys, I wanted to enjoy my success. I wanted to honor the gift that God gave me at birth. I was born to make people laugh. But for years, it was the tears of a clown. Everybody knows what I'm talking about when we have to put the mask on. Well, let me show you and let me tell you where the mask does not work. The mask does not work when you don't take your medication and you're speeding in a car and you kill a car full of children because you're raging. Let's go there. Let's go to the extreme.
Yes.
You can ruin people's lives. It is dangerous to have manic episodes, and it's dangerous to be depressed. You will hurt people in either state.
And another question from the audience hits that very point. She says, how do you get an adult loved one to seek and continue to get help when they don't think they have a problem? They don't think they need to take meds, and they're given meds and they're reluctant to take them.
I'll give that to the professionals.
I'm happy to jump in on that because I do think it is related. So as Dr. Janet was saying, if you're stable for 30 years, that's a beautiful and wonderful thing. And we acknowledge and applaud you for that stability. And the past 20 months have been so hard.
Oh.
So hard for so many people. And again, those numbers for adults, children, and our loved older adults have gone up exponentially. So the things I want to say about that are that even though you have been stable for so long, it is possible that the environment, the stress of the environment, what we're experiencing during this time might be something that's impacting you differently than it might have 2 years ago when you didn't have that experience. So it's important, to answer your second question, Michelle, that we have data. You're going to hear me say that again and again as a researcher, psychologist, professor, data. If you can help your loved one to see some of the changes that they've been going through, to say, 2 years ago around the holidays, you did X, Y, and Z, and now you don't really leave the house, Mom. Now, Dad, I can't get you out to walk. You used to play cards all the time. I know it's hard with masks and vaccines. I know that's hard, Dad. So acknowledging the challenge, but also saying, what I've noticed, the data that I have about where you're different from this baseline that you used to be at, it's different. How do you feel about that? We're going back to the how do you feel? What do you make of that? What sense do you make of that? How do you feel about having this difference? And then letting them give that feedback, right? Like if they say, I don't like it, that's your entree. You can take that and say, what would you like to do about it? How can we help you to go back to where that was? Let's think of some ideas. So again, putting it back on them to respond to that feedback, that data that you're pointing out can be really impactful.
And lead with love when you do that.
Absolutely.
I say that all the time. Lead with love as much as you can.
Lead with love and follow up with boundaries will be my
boundaries. Yes. Don't get it twisted. What love is taking care of you. That's what love is, because if the people around you fall, where is your strength?
Yes.
Think about that, y'all.
And there's also NAMI, the National Alliance for Mentally Ill. It is a good support for family members who have a loved one who may have mental illness. And they have a number of different ways to support you and give resources while you are taking care of someone that has mental illness. I agree with boundaries. Also, we have to lose the stigma. Sometimes within our families, if you know someone maybe on medication, they may move the salt shaker and you're like, did you take your meds? So we also have to be very mindful of how we treat our loved ones who have mental illness and don't make them feel like we're holding it against them. I'm not
saying my staff has permission. When they come in this house, they say, Jennifer, did you take your meds? Because they know I'm going to tear the shit up if I didn't.
How much?
Believe the shit is going to get tore up. Oh, no, I can listen. I'm going to be honest.
You're honest about it.
I'm going to be very honest with you. To this day, my rage can go from 0 to 2,000.
Wow.
But that's like once a year. And things have to really be crazy for that to happen. Used to be every day. Depressed every night. But now that I have treatment, and everybody out there listening, hear this. There is a way to be well. You have to want it. And it's stick-to-itiveness. It's not a game. It's not a rehearsal. You want to feel better? That's what life is feeling. You want to feel better? Then work for it. None of this shit is easy. None of it. You've got to want it. And you can do that. That's what human beings are. That's what we are. We want more. We want more and more and more. Well, want more happiness. Want more understanding. Want more education. You know what's good for you. You know you sitting there doing them drugs and over and over and over. Well, so am I. But listen. No, I'm kidding. But really, come on, take care of yourselves, kids. Come on.
I think what you're, can I just say what you're also saying is, as much as you want it, we have to get rid of people in our lives that don't want it for us.
Because I bet you better come.
Mental illness or mental conditions are not, I mean, certainly there's a genetic component, there's environmental stress and all those things, but it's also the relationships that we have. And knowing when we need to exit one or two or say no to somebody.
And that's huge. That's huge. So many women are trapped in these horrible marriages. I'm sorry.
And to that point, another great question from the audience was, how do you get families to talk when the rule of the house is what goes on here stays here? This woman is speaking about being diagnosed with PTSD, bipolar, and severe depression. And she has no support from her family. And she says her mother's advice is to put on the prettiest dress and smile. Smile. Do we have much progress out there in the community with acceptance? Dr. Janet, Tia, Dr. Rihanna?
Dr. Janet, do you want to go first?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think we need more. I think more and more people are going into therapy, and there are different ways to access it. And look at this call. I mean, you have 3 therapists on the call who are of color, and that's significant. But sometimes you can listen to what people say and then still do and go get and what you need. PTSD is treatable. PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, usually from, always from trauma. And it's not just one thing. Usually if you've been traumatized, you could have other things. But when you know what you need and you're an adult, you can find a way to get the help that you need. Again, if you're uninsured, underinsured, every county has medical treatment. But I think, as Jennifer was saying, find and get what you need. And I think Tia was going to say something. So yes, we're making strides, but clearly not enough, because people are still suffering and don't have access.
And so I'll add to that, let go of the fantasy, right? So part of the fantasy is that I am going to be saved by my family. I'm going to be nurtured by my mom or dad or cousin or boyfriend or husband. And that's going to be the thing that's going to pull me through. And the reality, the thing that's going to pull you through is your choice to find help where it exists. So let me say that again, where it exists. So it may not exist the way you want it in your household. That doesn't mean they don't love you. That just means that they can't give that to you. So you have to go where that help exists. And it will be in friend groups. It will be in support groups. It will be in individual therapists. And again, I say therapists because a lot of times I tell people therapy is like dating. You may find one therapist that's good for one part of your journey. You need someone else for another part of your journey. So you have to do the work to put together that full court press that's going to help you be your healthiest self.
And you have to be your own advocate too, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Quickly, Michelle, if I could also, so Tia's already brought this up, but this idea of chosen family is something that we need to talk about, where people can say, I'm going to choose these people to be my family around this issue. It's not by blood, but it's by support. What I'm hearing that wasn't quite in that question, or what I've heard a lot, families are often where that trauma is coming from. So
come on.
Right. If you're going back to that same family, trying to get the support from the same people who traumatized you, that's a toxic well. So you need to be dipping your bucket in whole spaces that are going to fulfill you, that are going to give you that energy, even if it's not by blood, or sometimes especially when it's not by blood.
Are there any other health resources, mental health resources that you can recommend for those folks suffering? I know Dr. Janet gave a few, Tia gave a few. Mm-hmm. But look, let's be real. I mean, some folks don't have family, some folks don't have friends. They have themselves and they need help. Where do they go? What's their first stop?
Well, I always tell potential patients that their first stop was with their primary care doc or nurse practitioner or whomever they see, who can certainly make sure, because the one thing with, mental health issues, you want to make sure that there's no underlying medical condition, thyroid, different medications, sometimes substance abuse, all those things that may contribute to whatever is going on with you mentally. So get a physical, get a checkup, be open and talk to your doctor or healthcare provider about how you're doing, because not only do they know you, your personality, your insurance status, they can refer you somewhere. But the key is to open your mouth, communicate, and stand up and get the help that you need.
I love that. And go to more than one place. Sometimes we'll go to the doctor and they say, nothing's wrong with you. This is normal. You're stressed. If you know something is wrong, you have to keep going. And I'll add to that, do a little Google search about the way that you're feeling. Sometimes a little bit of education, again, that doesn't replace a doctor, a therapist, but having the title, knowing that I'm not going crazy, that there is something wrong, having some more of the language, more of the tools to start helping you direct yourself to a path of more support can be very empowering, right?
And start journaling.
Experience.
And start journaling. Start journaling. If you're not journaling, journal. Write about it. Say what it is on the page. Yeah. So when you go back to it, you go, what did I do? There's homework, darling. Homework. We still have homework. It takes a lot to prepare yourself to walk out into what the world is now. I call this. I call this.
That's a great suggestion.
What
I should be. Yeah.
Darling, you must journal. Here, look. You see this? Look at that shelf. No, I'm serious. I'm serious.
I love that.
No, look. In the Mother Black Hollywood, now listen to me, my memoir, I kept the journal. There are 63 of them here. I'm 65. I mean, well, wow. Listen, there are 63 journals there. For the reason I started journaling in the 7th grade was because I said I'm gonna be a star. Hey, and I became one. But I knew I was gonna need this information if I ever wrote a book. So when I got into therapy, my therapist told me right away, the journaling is what saved my life.
Wow.
Can I underscore something that Tia said? You know, for Black women, we will present to our primary care doc 10 times before they ask us how we are feeling and about our mood. If you know that you are depressed, if you know that something's not right, if you know that you're manic, whatever's going on, it is up to you to say, I need help. To open your mouth and say, I need help. Because I think as we started, the cavalry is not coming. It is up to you.
Yeah, there was something that someone said that made a point to one of our audience members. She said, as someone who sought a therapist on their journey, she found that, you know, feeling a connection to the therapist was key. And she wanted to know if there was a recommendation on or recommended questions on ways to determine if the therapist will be a good fit before you go through the sessions, unmasking the unhealed wounds, only to find that you're reliving your trauma and not getting the help you need.
Yeah, so Tia was bringing that up, and I would love to hear more from you, Tia. Just a very quick note that we've been talking about therapy as the standard, as the thing to do. And one thing that's really amazing right now, if you have what we're going to call like a lower level problem, if it's not something that is taking over your functioning, your well-being, but you know you're agitated, you know you're a bit stressed out, you're a bit frustrated, there are apps now, there are digital companies, you can text, chat. There are so many, quote, again, you know, shorter or smaller ways of getting your needs met that can even prevent you from having to go through the rigmarole of seeing a therapist, finding them, blah, 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 if that's a challenge. So I just want to first acknowledge that there are so many online app-based.
Name a few. I mean, I know there's Shine. I've done a story on them. That's the only reason they come to mind. But, you know, there are other options out there I'm sure you're familiar with.
Absolutely. And they're escaping me right now.
Well, Hurdle, there's one, Hurdle.
Yeah, Hurdle.
Hurdle used to be Henry Health. Black Girls, I think it's Therapy for Black Girls.
Yeah, sure.
Is one.
Yeah. But so that's one. But then what Tia was saying, and again, I'm really excited to hear her finish this up. I say the same thing about the relationship element. So you don't know sometimes going to any relationship what it's going to look like, but you know a few things. So if you want to go in and ask, what is this homework going to look like? What's your position about these types of things? If you know just as a human, these are some of the things that you need, that can be helpful. But one thing that's really important, just because it might be challenging, doesn't mean that it's time to head for the hills. So sometimes folks say, oh, it's too hard, but you are unpacking, unwinding all this stuff that you've stored up for so long. And this person sometimes is trying to help you get through that. And you might look at that person like, nope, I'm not going to do this with them because they're trying to da, da, da. This is a part of it. It's a part of the work. So there's a fine line between that person not being a good fit and that person pushing you to a new space that's part of the work. So that's my thought there.
Can I just get to some more of these questions? They're pretty deep. And I need you to help with like the answers here being quick. There are no, quick solutions, but someone's asking about what advice you give when dating with bipolar disorder and not feeling ashamed.
Girl, get your ass out of there. What are you gonna do? Get out of there. Okay, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. If you guys can't go to therapy together and work through it, it's all about working through things. If you love this person, then try to work through it. If you can't get him or her to go to therapy, it's time to go, sweetie. Don't waste your life. I mean, here's what I told people in my book tour. 3 times. Ask them if they want to go get help and then get out of there. I don't play that shit. Get out. It's too hard. If people don't want to help themselves, leave the room. End of story. Breathe and leave. That's one name of one of my chapters. Just breathe and leave. It's a big planet, baby.
And if you are the person who has a mental health condition that you know you walk with during your life, a lot of times my clients are like, when do I disclose? When do I disclose? It's not something that you have to disclose on a first date. It's not something that you have to disclose really until you decide that you are ready to take the relationship to a different level. And when I say intimate, I don't mean sexually. I mean intimate in terms of we're going to start sharing and walking through life together in a way that is more meaningful, impactful, and consistent. And my health concerns, my habits will have an impact on that relationship. So don't feel like you have to tell someone, everything that's going on with your life immediately.
And I find that relationships where you are open when it's time do better, because then you don't feel like you're hiding something, and your partner can actually be very supportive, and they can be aware of the signs as well.
And signs for children. There are tons of questions about this. How do you recognize them? And what's your first step?
A lot of signs in children are about internalizing that sadness, anxiety, depression, stress, or externalizing acting out, rage, or attention. So those are the three main areas that we see issues with children. So if you see, as Jennifer noted, your child is in their room for hours at a time, they're not coming out, they're not talking, that might feel like, oh, they're just becoming adolescents, but it could be a sign of something else. So again, just chatting with them about what it is that they're experiencing, why they don't want to come out their room, externalizing if they're getting in trouble quite a bit with at school with their classmates, that might be a sign that there's something that they haven't unpacked, something that they're not saying. And attentional stuff, again, if you're noticing that it's really hard for them to stay focused, that's really where we see a lot of meds plus therapy being a great option for kiddos.
And if your kids tell you that they're sad, or you find that they're, cutting themselves, or, even if it doesn't break the skin, doing things that are self-destructive, believe them. That is not just play. It's not just something that you want, even though you may want it to go away, that you can ignore. It takes a long time sometimes to get into a child or adolescent doc. Take them to your pediatrician, but have them talk to somebody. Take whatever their mental health issues are as very serious.
And stop acting like you don't know. Go ahead, baby.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Dr. Janet had to say. Again, and this is not just about larger issues. Don't minimize your children's feelings. I deal with a lot of adult clients who were not allowed to have a voice when they were, 1 to 18, and then they're in college or in their early 20s, and all of a sudden they're supposed to be able to speak up and use their voice, articulate their feelings, manage frustration and stress, and be empowered. And so if we don't build that in people as they are growing, it doesn't snap on at 18 or 21 or 25. So we have to get in the habit of communicating and understanding, even if you're in a successful family, even if someone wasn't raped or beaten and there was no divorce, people still get sad. People still have insecurities. People still have stressors. People still get confused, and recognize that too as a major part of mental wellness. So helping your children develop a voice, helping your young adults develop coping skills, not giving them gifts or telling them they have nothing to be upset about because this didn't happen to them, and understanding that they still have to be able to stretch those muscles in order to be fully functioning.
One of the big things is stop acting like you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Stop that. You know. We all know when something's wrong.
Act on it.
My girlfriend, husband, she married 25 years younger than her. And he ended up molesting her daughter. Mm. And she called me and said, wow. She told me the story. And you know what I said to her? You knew. Mm. She's like, wow, nobody has said that to me. I said, I know, because most people haven't had the kind of work I've had. We always know, if something's wrong with your child or your lover, your mother, your father, that aunt that stays in the attic, or that uncle that stays in the basement. Stop acting like you know, and stop acting like that's normal. It's not. You say something, you do something. And I don't want to hear that you can't afford it. This is America. They've got places you can go. You do the research. It's you that has to do this. Nobody's coming, pumpkin. I wish I could tell you somebody's coming. I thought somebody was coming. They didn't. I had to do it, and it was hard.
Yes.
Make no mistake, there's nothing easy about this. We are habitual creatures. If you don't go down to the root of the pain that you've got to go to the root of it. Who touched you? Who did it? And what did you do?
So as you say, I was about to call you Dr. Jennifer.
Yeah, I should have a degree in psychology, but I think these women are degree like, oh no, Jennifer's just all emotion. I am.
No,
Because
I mean,
somebody's got to have
lived
that.
it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. Yes, I did.
You've lived it.
I most certainly did. I had a sex addiction, y'all. Read The Mother Black Hollywood. Laid my entire life out. I gave you every secret I had because I believe that we are as sick as our secrets. Tell somebody. And if they don't listen, tell somebody else. And if they don't listen, tell somebody else. You got to want to be well in this world. We've been given life, y'all. We got life.
Yeah. And I just want to underscore what Jennifer is saying. You know, there's a difference between what's secret and what's sacred. And what's secret, what happened to us, we need to blurt out, get out, whatever we can, because it lives within you. And we know trauma lives within the body. And what we want to hold on to is what's sacred and what makes us better. Wow. So get the help, no matter how old you are, what happened to you, talk to somebody and get it out.
Brilliant final thought, Dr. Janet. I'd like to hear from Dr. Rihanna and also Tia. Your final thoughts?
I love that segue, which is that it's never too late. It is never too late to be well, to be whole, to seek happiness for yourself. And I would say, if not now, if not from this past 20 months of struggle, strife, loss, if not now, if this isn't the time to seek your wellness and make sure that it is where you want it to be before we, quote, go back to this new normal. If you can't prioritize now, when will it be? So fight for yourself now. Don't let 2022 start without you figuring out what's your plan, because it's never too late.
And write it down, write it down, write it, people, write it.
Write it down, people, like she said. Tia?
I co-sign everything that has been said, and I add on, changes in the moment. We have the ability to decide that we want to create something new. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be. Let go of the fantasy that the life that you want is going to magically appear. Let go of the fantasy if you don't go about therapy right or taking your meds right, that you can't change and life can't be better. All you have to do is keep pushing.
That's right.
If our Q&A is any indication, we have struck a nerve. This is clearly an issue. Wellness is something we are seeking as people. We certainly have so much to deal with here. I just have to say, vocalization and speaking to the universe about what you want, what you desire, it comes. It's what Jennifer said. It's what Rihanna said. It's what Janet said. It's what Tia said. Speak, see, speak, act. And if you put it out there, I'm telling you, when I speak out loud, it comes around. So if you need help, ask for it. If you want to do something, find a therapist, start the search, just do it. And that's just the only thing I have to say. I have so enjoyed this conversation. And at 9:45, we are 15 minutes over time.
But I'm still going to say one last thing to everybody.
One last thing, Jennifer.
First of all, I want to say how honored I am to sit on this panel. I had no idea who you were when I sat down. I know now, all of you.
We knew who you were.
Oh, well, what can I tell you?
We definitely knew who you were.
But I want to say, I want to say to all of you, I know who you are now. And
Oh,
thank you for your service. I want to say to everybody out there, the words, they're the most difficult words to speak. They're just three. I need help. Ask for it, baby. So many of us are so scared. You can be scared, but be unafraid. Go forward.
go
I
for
love
it.
that.
Thank you.
And then on that, I'm gonna just toss it back to our president and leader in this discussion who initiated it, Gwen. Madam President.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ladies. You were wonderful. It was informative. It was entertaining. It was real. And I know that there were so many questions coming through, some that I'm sure that we didn't get to answer. But we really, really hope that we can continue to erase the stigma about mental health and mental wellness. As Dr. Janet talked to me the other day, that there was a difference between mental health and mental wellness, and we deserve all of that. So, and one of the, I think everything was so profound that was being said today. I'm so happy that we're recording it, and it will be available on our YouTube page. And I want to say thank you and good night. Thank AARP for their sponsorship this evening, and that we will have another conversation in January. So stay tuned. God bless and good night. Love you, ladies.
Love you back, baby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, ladies. You're wonderful.
Bye.
All of you are so wonderful. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
How do you do it?
Yeah.
That is. Okay.